Hey, I didn't think I'd be making a World Cup video, solely because I didn't really have anything worth saying, and I'm trying to resist the urge to just make hot take videos and stuff that there's no substance to. It's just a timely piece of content. So I wasn't going to make a World Cup video, but then I've been thinking quite a lot about it, and I now have some thoughts that I think might be worth sharing on YouTube. I'm going to let you be the judge of that. If they are, then you can let me know in the comments and like and do all the things. So stick around and let's hear it. First of all though, welcome. I'm Andrew, this is All Things Theology, and on this channel we try and just think biblically about the world, try and bring God's truth to the world and see how it applies to our lives and live it out in relevant ways. So yeah, let's think about the World Cup 2022 in Qatar, controversially. Everyone is kind of pointing the finger at Qatar at the minute, and rightly so. To be fair, their human rights record is not great. They blatantly they bought the World Cup, and it's really shameless. They criminalize LGBT plus people, and like, even if you are a Christian, I don't know any Christians who are okay with that thing. That's not okay. Plus the whole slave labor, it's not great. But whenever I was thinking about this, I was reminded of Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 7. He says this: "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way that you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." What I love about Jesus' words here is that he doesn't say the thing that people think he says. People think he says, "Don't judge," full stop. But no, he doesn't say that. He says, "Don't judge, or you will be judged. In the same way that you judge others, you yourself will be judged." He's saying don't judge other people and condemn them for doing the same thing that you do. But he says, take the log out of your own eye, okay? Fix your own thing, fix your own mess before you go and judge other people for the same mess. Everyone is judging Qatar at the minute for all the stuff that they do, but do we show the same diligence and the same frustration with our own countries and their human rights record? Because look, I live in the UK, okay? I love my country, it's a great place to live, but we're not exactly squeaky clean at the minute. And like, I'm not talking about colonialism and all that, British Empire, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about now, okay? And like, really recently there, a couple of weeks ago, there was this asylum seeker processing centre in Kent. It was supposed to house 1,600 people for 24 hours, maybe 5 days at a push, but there were 4,000 people crammed into this thing like animals, and sanitation wasn't great. Obviously it wasn't equipped to hold so many people, and so people started getting sick. All these pregnant ladies, and they were just being given ibuprofen, and then all these kids were like throwing messages over the fence saying like, "Journalists, please come help, do something, we're being treated awfully here." That was in the UK, okay? That was really recently, and yeah, the UK have moved to do stuff about that, but the fact that that happened in the first place, pretty bad. There was also that like really heartbreaking story of the child who died because his house was just full of damp, and his parents they were asylum seekers, they'd been here since 2017, and they went to loads of people, they spoke to everyone they could about it. They said, "Look, our house is so damp, we're getting really sick, we have a 2-year-old, and nobody listened, nobody did anything until the child literally died." Like, this isn't Qatar, this isn't Iran, this is the UK. And so I'm not saying that we should fix all of our country's problems before we start looking at other countries. I don't think that's maybe a fair application of this passage, because this passage is talking about on an individual level. But I think the same principle still applies, that if we're looking at Qatar and being like, look at their awful human rights records, we gotta look at ourselves as well. And we gotta show the same diligence in pointing out our own flaws as we do in pointing out their flaws. Now, zoning in like a little bit from a national level to more community level, your town, your area, wherever you live, there are also issues of injustice where you live. I mean, you don't need to be told we're in the middle of this massive cost of living crisis. Things are super expensive, and there are people having to make the decision between, am I going to heat my house or am I going to feed my children? Like, that's just the reality at the minute. People are going cold, people are going hungry, and the book of James chapter 2, it says, "Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food." You're like, okay, well, people are cold, people are without food, that's happening now. It says, "If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it?" There are people who are not warm and who are not well fed at the minute. That is an issue of justice. We as Christians need to be doing something about that. And look, it's really not hard to just, I don't know, throw a couple of extra things in your trolley whenever you're at Tesco shopping, to look up and say, okay, well, what do the food bank need? Put it in your trolley, and stick it in the food bank on your way out. If you care about workers' rights in Qatar, you've also got to care about the people in your local community. Now, tightening in like a little bit more, let's think about ourselves a bit and our human rights record, which might not be super comfortable, because we might be decrying all of the human rights abuses in Qatar. We might decry that, oh, they use slave labour, but let's be real. Are you buying £2 t-shirts off Cheyenne? Or Shein? I don't know how you say it. Are you buying the cheapest clothes that you can get? Are you going down to Primark and just filling your bag? Because if you are, you're supporting human slavery. There's a reason the cheap clothes are so cheap, and it's not because they're mass produced. It's not, I mean, these big companies always come out with these amazing, incredible reasons as to why their clothes are so cheap. And it's like, no, come on. We all know that you're using slaves. You're paying people 15 hours a day for £3 a day to make these clothes for you. And then you're selling them on, and we're buying them because we think, okay, well, they're cheap. And that is probably the exact same thought process that is going on in Qatar. Okay, over here, we're like, you know, look, everybody buys from Primark. Everyone buys the cheapest clothes because, look, clothes are so expensive. And in Qatar, they're probably thinking, well, look, all the building companies use slave labour. Do you know how much it would cost if we were to actually pay people a fair wage? It's the exact same. Whenever we're like, okay, well, yeah, I know that my Primark clothes, I know that my Cheyenne clothes are made by slaves, but everyone does it. You cannot, with any integrity, point the finger at slave labour in Qatar and say, that is really awful, in your Primark jumper. You can't do it. You got to ask yourself, okay, well, where am I getting my clothes from? And this is where you've got to put your money where your mouth is, because sharing the Instagram post is really, really easy. It literally costs you nothing. It almost doesn't even cost you any time. But buying the more expensive clothes that probably aren't made with slave labour, buying those clothes, they do cost a lot more. Okay, you're not going to be able to buy as much. You're not going to be able to buy things as often. But that's the cost. If you're going to stand up against these human rights abuses, then it's got to cost something, and you've got to put your money where your mouth is. You've got to think about what you consume and what you buy, because your human rights record might not be great. Now, look, I know this is a human thing. Injustice runs through all of us. There's a reason that this has always been a thing and probably will always be a thing. We all treat other people as less than human if it benefits us in some way. That's just a human tendency. But in the kingdom of God, that's not really an option for us. In the kingdom of God, people's humanity is respected. They're to be treated with dignity. And we are called into that work. We're to act justly and to love mercy, to walk humbly, to let justice roll out like a river. That is God's call for every Christian, to work in a way that undermines injustice. And I'm not saying that you have to campaign against every single issue. Okay, I'm a big believer that you can't. Okay, pick a few. You can care about everything. You can pray about everything. You don't have to spend all your time campaigning for every single issue, but at least be consistent in the things that you're protesting against. If you care about human rights abuses in Qatar, you've got to care about human rights abuses in the UK. And if you care about human rights abuses in the UK, then you've got to think carefully about where you're getting your clothes and your coffee and your chocolate from. Because if you are going as cheap as you possibly can, no questions asked, you yourself are funding slave labour. Now, this isn't meant to be a guilt trip, more of just a challenge. And if it was challenging, if those were worthwhile thoughts, then let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you think. Are you watching the World Cup? Let me know that. I'm not watching at the minute. Probably more so because I'm not really that into football. Might watch the semis, might watch the final. I don't know. But let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear that. And if you did enjoy this video, hit it with a like. Then it can spread to more people. So yeah, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in another video. God bless.